Hello everyone, welcome to today's lesson. In this lesson, we will learn comparative and superlative. If you are ready, let's get started. First of all, we will learn comparative. Comparative. To make comparative adjectives, we use ER for short words, one syllable. Let's look at our examples. Small becomes smaller. Cheap becomes cheaper. Fast becomes faster. As you can see, these words are one syllable. And we add these words ER if you want to make comparative adjective. We use R for adjectives that end in E. Large becomes larger. Nice becomes nicer. Late becomes later. We add another consonant plus ER for adjectives that end in vowel plus consonant. For example, IG, AT, OT, or IN. Let's look at our examples. Thin becomes thinner. Big becomes bigger. Fat becomes fatter. We change Y to I and add ER for adjectives that end in Y. For example, lucky becomes luckier. Dry becomes drier. Easy becomes easier. We drop the Y at the end of word. We add IER. For most adjectives with two syllables, we use more plus adjective. Let's look at our example. My new computer is more modern than Jake's. My new computer is more modern than Jake's. For adjectives with three or more syllables, we always use more plus adjective. Let's look at our example. A rose is more beautiful than a daisy. A rose is more beautiful than a daisy. We use comparative adjectives when we compare two people or two things. Let's look at our examples. His cat is larger than my dog. His cat is larger than my dog. Let's look at another one. Ben wants to be more popular than Josh. Ben wants to be more popular than Josh. Please note that we usually use than after comparative adjectives. Let's look at our example. She is shorter than her sister. She is shorter than her sister. Please note that again. We use me, her, etc. not. She, he, etc. after that. Let's look at our example. Maria is taller than her. Maria is taller than her. Please note that again. But we can use I, he, she, etc. if we put am, is, are after the subject pronoun. Let's look at our examples. Maria is taller than she is. Maria is taller than she is. Let's look at another one. I think John is nicer than he is. I think John is nicer than he is. Let's repeat these sentences in a correct way to pronounce our speaking. If you are ready, let's get started. Small, small, smaller, smaller. Cheap, cheap, cheaper, cheaper. Fast, fast, faster, faster, large, large, larger, larger, nice, nice, nicer, nicer, late, late, later, later, thin, thin, thinner, thinner, big, big, bigger, bigger, fat, fat, fatter, fatter, lucky, lucky, luckier, luckier, dry, dry, drier, drier, easy, easy, easier, easier. My new computer is more modern than Jack's. My new computer is more modern than Jack's. A rose is more beautiful than a daisy. A rose is more beautiful than a daisy. His cat is larger than my dog. His cat is larger than my dog. Ben wants to be more popular than Josh. Ben wants to be more popular than Josh. She is shorter than her sister. She is shorter than her sister. Maria is taller than her. Maria is taller than her. Maria is taller than she is. Maria is taller than she is. I think John is nicer than he is. I think John is nicer than he is. Let's continue. We can use comparative adjectives without than when it is clear what or who we are talking about. Let's look at our example. The first exam was easy, but the second was more difficult. The first exam was easy, but the second was more difficult. Some comparative adjectives are irregular. Let's look at them. Bad becomes worse. Good becomes better. Far becomes further or farther. Well becomes better. Let's look at our example. The book was better than I expected. The book was better than I expected. The opposite of more is less. We can use less with adjectives with 2 or more syllables. Let's look at our example. Silver is less expensive than gold. Silver is less expensive than gold. Please note that we don't use more or less with an adjective that is already a comparative adjective. Let's look at our example. Mike is funnier than Isaac. Mike is funnier than Isaac. Please note that again, we don't use more with irregular adjectives. Let's look at our example. You dance better than I do. You dance better than I do. Let's repeat these sentences in a correct way to improve our speaking. If you are ready, let's get started. The first exam was easy, but the second was more difficult. The first exam was easy, but the second was more difficult. Bad, bad, worse, worse, good, good, better, better, far, far, further, further, farther, farther, well, well, better, better. The book was better than I expected. The book was better than I expected. Silver is less expensive than gold. Silver is less expensive than gold. Mike is funnier than Isaac. Mike is funnier than Isaac. You dance better than I do. You dance better than I do. In this part of the lesson, we will learn superlative. If you are ready, let's get started. Superlative. To make superlative adjectives, we use EST for most short words, one-syllable words. Let's look at our examples. Small becomes smallest. Fast becomes fastest. Short becomes shortest. We use ST for adjectives that end in E. Let's look at our example. Large becomes largest. Nice becomes nicest. Late becomes latest. We add another consonant plus EST, adjectives that end in vowel plus consonant. For example, IG, AT, OT, or IN. Let's look at our examples. Thin becomes thinnest. Big becomes biggest. Fat becomes fattest. We change Y to I and add EST for adjectives that end in Y. Let's look at our examples. Lucky becomes luckiest. We drop the Y at the end of the word and we put IEST, luckiest. Easy becomes easier. Dry becomes driest. For most adjectives with two or more syllables, we use the most plus adjective. Let's look at our example. This is the most interesting book I have ever read. This is the most interesting book I have ever read. Let's repeat these sentences in a correct way to improve our speaking. If you are ready, let's get started. Small, small, smallest, smallest, fast, fast, fastest, fastest, short, short, shortest, shortest, large, large, largest, largest, nice, nice, nicest, nicest, late, late, latest, latest, thin, thin, thinnest, thinnest, big, big, biggest, biggest, fat, fat, fattest, fattest, lucky, lucky, luckiest, luckiest, easy, easy, easiest, easiest, dry, dry, driest, driest. This is the most interesting book I have ever read. This is the most interesting book I have ever read. Let's continue. The opposite of most is least. We usually use the least with adjectives with 2 or more syllables. Let's look at our example. What is the least expensive way of traveling in Japan? What is the least expensive way of traveling in Japan? We use superlative adjectives when we compare one person or one thing with several others. Let's look at our example. I am the tallest in my family. I am the tallest in my family. Some superlative adjectives are irregular. Let's look at them. Bad becomes worst. Good becomes best. Far becomes furthest or farthest. Little becomes least. Please note that we use the before superlative adjectives. Let's look at our example. He is the best student in the class. He is the best student in the class. Please note that again. After superlative adjectives, we use in before the names of places and groups. Let's look at our example. Was that the best one in the town? Was that the best one in the town? We can also use my, your, his, etc. before superlative adjectives. Let's look at our example. Adam is my oldest friend. Adam is my oldest friend. We often use superlative adjectives plus I have ever, you have ever, etc. to talk about our experiences. Let's look at our example. What is the most expensive car you have ever bought? What is the most expensive car you have ever bought? Let's repeat these sentences in a correct way to improve our speaking. If you are ready, let's get started. What is the least expensive way of traveling in Japan? What is the least expensive way of traveling in Japan? I am the tallest in my family. I am the tallest in my family. Bad, bad, worst, worst, good, good, best, best, far, far, furthest, furthest, farthest, farthest, little, little, least, least. He is the best student in the class. He is the best student in the class. Was that the best one in the town? Was that the best one in the town? Adam is my oldest friend. Adam is my oldest friend. What is the most expensive car you have ever bought? What is the most expensive car you have ever bought? Thank you for joining today's lesson. See you soon. Bye.